I'll tell you, I'm Miles Metcalfe, by the way. I'm Ravensbourne. We're a little bit mad because we're an art and designy place. So my job title is Head of IT Research and Development, but you know, generally, if it's got a plug on it, it's my fault. For those of you who don't know, Ravensbourne is a specialist higher education college. We are validated currently by the University of Sussex and City University. Yes, that's right, we have two validating universities, and you can imagine how much fun that is. We have around 1,500 students, and we just do design and communication, mainly undergraduate. We have a few postgraduate students, about 200 FE students. And we live in leafy Chislehurst in Kent. I don't know if you've been to leafy Chislehurst in Kent. It's leafy. The interesting thing about Chislehurst is that Napoleon III, when he was deposed as Emperor of France, went to live there. So it has the longest railway station platform in South London because Queen Victoria used to visit the place. So you can see it's got lots to do with cutting-edge design and communication. So we're moving to Greenwich. This is courtesy of our friends at Google. An image here of the Millennium Dome, or as it's called these days, the O2. Apparently a telephone company has naming rights of a tent on a peninsula in Greenwich on a disused piece of industrial land. The 21st century always does my head in. And we are moving here, quite literally just outside the Millennium Dome in about 2010. So it's a great opportunity for us because what we're doing is purpose-built college for the 21st century. You may be horrified by the look of it. You know, this is designed by FOA, some of the brightest architectural brains in the EU. It was originally green and sort of silver, so we were going to have a big mouse on the top because it looked like a cheese. Apparently green ceramics was a little bit too expensive, so you know, we've got this colour now. And this will be happening in 2010, but it's a great opportunity for us to kind of do things differently and maybe do things right from time to time. Actually, I can't tell you what the future holds. You know, let's face it, God knows why they're asking me to tell you about the future of technology. You should probably be talking to our students. You know, none of us know. I mean, a couple of years ago, people were buying property on credit, thinking it would make them rich. So you've all seen the films about the future. But what I can tell you about our college, of course, is that it's going to be 100% buzzword compliant. So here we go. Here's some buzzwords. It'll be learner-centered, community-engaged, deep learning, vocational, peer-supported, research-informed, personalized, enterprising, and inclusive. Please, hands up anyone whose college isn't that already. Okay, so what on earth does an IT department do about this? Right. So, what are we thinking about? Well, the big thing, I think, is user-owned technology. I'm really glad that I'm kind of following on from Tim and Maria, because Tim was pointing to something that is absolutely fascinating and exciting and really a good reason to be working in educational IT right now. And that is user-owned technology. And that is that you can do on commodity computing what you used to need to spend millions on. And just how wonderfully empowering that is and the great opportunities that it creates are almost kind of beyond articulation, aren't they? I mean, how many people get that opportunity in their lifetime to be participating in some enormous, potentially unenvisaged mass democratization of creativity? I mean, you know, it doesn't happen to us all, does it? So, obviously, because we're into user-owned technology, and dare I say, of course, there's an economic reason for user-owned technology, isn't it? You know, if the students are buying their own computers, then we're saving money. So there's going to be the usual suspects. We will have flexible learning spaces. I think senior managers watch too many James Bond movies. Flexible learning space. I always imagine that someone presses a button, you know, and the lecturer's desk sinks into the ground and the missile launcher comes up. We will have serendipitous commons, and really I wish I could show you pictures of the inside of the building to actually make that sound a little bit less buzzword compliant. But I mean, some of our images are a little bit confidential. But the building is built inside like a Mediterranean hillside city. Not quite like a Mediterranean hillside city, I should say. But that same underlying idea where there are little miradors and overlooks where you get to see what people are doing elsewhere in the building. So you, instead of just these corridors and walls and so on and so forth. So there's more chance of people meeting, because what we believe at Ravensbourne very passionately is that the old ideas of monolithic creative disciplines, of design and communication as separate things, it's stopping being relevant. That what's happened to design and communication is basically these things, although they don't work when you need them to. What's happened to design and communication is they have been transformed by computing. And what was, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, in a design studio, you had a rotary pen and a drawing board, and now you have a Mac. 15 years ago, in a broadcasting environment, you had somebody with a pair of scissors and a bit of masking tape or something. Tim could probably tell me exactly what it was. And now you have computers. And maybe next week you'll have mobile phones. Anyway, ubiquitous wireless, yeah, yada, 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 yada. You kind of get the picture. But what else can we add value to as an IT department? I mean, we've got the learning space, we've got the wireless, we've got all the pain that comes with that. Students can't get on the wireless network. So what we could do is we could use some of the money that we currently spend on computer barns to subsidize personal technology. I've thought about this for some time. We spend bucket loads of money because it's the kind of thing that you show people around, don't you? Come to my university, and here we've got this fantastic computer lab. And our fantastic, and we have some fantastic computer labs, I should say. I mean, I don't want to knock Ravensbourne. We have some fantastic computer lab. But I remember once I won't name the university, but I was being proudly shown around a university. It was about the time when Windows XP was coming out. And there were a load of what looked like 486s running Windows NT. And this was the kind of big sell, wasn't it? And then you think, how much does that cost to maintain? How much does it cost to support that? And maybe you could take some of that money and instead of providing basically a crap computing service, maybe you could actually provide computers or connectivity and so on and so forth. What you can do, of course, though, and what we like doing is providing higher end stuff that you can actually integrate with a user-owned workflow. Oh dear, that is too buzzwordy, isn't it? So you imagine if you... somebody from O2, unsurprisingly, was telling me how the cutting edge of television is that these days, television people, they edit their programs on their mobile phones. I didn't quite buy it because I think he wanted to sell me a phone. But, certainly people do edit on laptops, but then there's a difficulty of rendering effects and so on and so forth. So if we can plug in to that kind of thing, and we can say, well, you can do some work here, and then we can add a little bit of value there, then that makes a lot more sense about IT provision. And then there are all of these things, and I guess, why we're here at this kind of thing. There are things about software as a service, there are things about open source alternatives to existing software, and then there's ability, with a little bit of luck, though no one has really fixed this in the software industry, would be, of course, lending software to students. And we could look at doing things like that. Software as a service, of course, I mean things like Google Docs or Huddle and so on and so forth, where we don't have to worry about providing something and, the students can access exactly the same tools that we use. Open source alternatives, quite often let's face it, since Adobe took over Macromedia, I hope there are no representatives of Adobe or Macromedia here, but since Adobe took over Macromedia, they've basically become a bunch of money-grabbing thieves, haven't they? They screw us. Now, there are good open source alternatives to these kind of things, and Google, please, if you're listening, if you want to sort of build Google Photoshop, we'll be right behind you. Okay, so let's take a little detour down. So what does this mean then? Today, you know this, you get a free laptop with a mobile phone contract, don't you? I don't know how sustainable that is. I don't even know how phone companies are accounting for that, but, hey, I don't have to do accounting. But it has changed what we do as IT departments because we've lost the thing of IT being expensive, haven't we? We've lost the thing about senior managers presiding over decisions. We've lost the thing about IT being an enterprise function. This is all evaporating. You know, we've lost this, and it wasn't that long ago, was it? You know, it wasn't that long ago when user choices really didn't matter a stuff. You know, you don't care, and you can still look at software, can't you, that was actually designed in a time when users' opinions didn't matter. Most accounting software, most HR software, most of this kind of vertical stuff, you know, that you want to stick pencils in your eyes when you log in, users didn't matter. Because you just said, no, you know, the senior managers decided that we were going to have this piece of software, and you use it, or you get lost. But all of this has gone, and it's this kind of really frightening space for IT departments, because, you know, what we're used to is our enterprise LANs, which, you know, I'm not saying that they're useless, you know, they're not. But of course, what many of our users want to do is they want to use the wireless on our networks to connect to the internet. And we're blocking their ports, aren't we? You're going, oh, you little bastards. You want to do your peer-to-peer stuff, don't you? How sustainable is that, really? If we are thinking about our future and what kind of value we're adding, yes, all of this sexy stuff, what are we going to do? We're going to say, oh, we don't like the look of that port, we'll block that. Okay, so we have an identity crisis, don't we? What is tomorrow's IT department? Is it any more, and I mean, rhetorical question, is it any more a defender of scarce resource? Is it an arbiter of fair use? You know that job, you know, where kind of job that you came into IT because you were like the IT Lone Ranger, weren't you? You know, making sure that everybody got their fair crack, enforcing this community discipline, you know, because you knew there was that person in the physics department who was going to be using your box to do a little bit too much number crunching. And so you waited till they had their batch job loaded and ha, you rebooted the machine. Are we an agent of enterprise transformation? I hate phrases like enterprise transformation. This is the kind of thing that, you know, you imagine senior managers and the CIO-type brigade sitting there at the golf club talking about, oh, yes, we're agents of enterprise transformation. Oh, as they sort of quaff another glass of champagne or something. I mean, it's rubbish, isn't it? I mean, of course enterprises change, but this idea somehow that you need an overpaid layer of agency to do it, particularly in a university, when you've got academics who never follow rules and students who will break them in any case. So, you know, or are we a service provider? And if we are a service provider, we're pretty bad at it. So, here we are. Here's an iPhone. I mean, if we want to continue with our model of control, telling people what to do, things like this and the little chips in the laptops have broken that model, haven't they? You know, I can't get on the wireless in here because there's too many people, I presume, on the wireless. But I can get a decent 3G signal, so I've been twittering away. I mean, universities, I don't think we've got to worry so much about this because, you know, we possibly don't want to impose that many restrictions on our students. But what about the FE college that currently blocks YouTube or Facebook? What are they going to do? Are they going to build a Faraday cage around their college? Actually, we have. Okay, so there's a good side to this. Learning to, I call it sorry, you know, I did mention the buzzwords. It's about the pedagogy, isn't it? There is a pedagogy that slightly loses control. There is a pedagogy that isn't about someone like me standing in front of you telling you about my opinions. So what works for us? It's a coherent pedagogy, we hope. I mean, I say coherent because I'm representing my institution. It's a coherent pedagogy where learners become practitioners. So, you know, our students, they don't learn to be designers and broadcasters so that they can then write theses about them. They learn to become designers and broadcasters, do design and do television. They need to negotiate a public identity. So, you know, they start as learners and then they become practitioners. So they need to negotiate a public identity. This is quite an interesting and tricky thing. And they need to integrate their extra-institutional practice into their institution-bound learning. So, for example, Ian Forrester, of the BBC, is a Ravensbourne alum. He's a DJ, as well as being a BBC type. Now, his DJing is, of course, absolutely relevant when he was a student. It's relevant to his studies at Ravensbourne. But there wasn't at the time, because we're talking many years ago, a way of integrating that practice into his study. Now there is. Now, music sharing, whatever, your MySpace page, what have you, that becomes something that potentially is an accessible component, isn't it? You can integrate it into your study. And this actually then becomes a very interesting way of negotiating that public-private boundary. So it's something that we maybe don't need to worry about. We create a personal learning environment where learners bring a part of their environment with them, and they augment it through institutional services. Now, these are not necessarily services that we own and have, but these are services, if you like, that we have thought about and offer. And they reintegrate this through a stack, if you like, a social stack of software. And I mean, we are the ones, and I'm a great believer in this, we are the ones as educators who have to do the thinking about how this reintegration works. And I don't think we're doing enough thinking about this right now. This is one of my kind of key pleas. Someone was talking about mobile phones earlier on. It's been a long conference and it's all evaporating in my brain. Okay, yes, it's interesting that you can call your mates when you're late for the pub on your mobile phone. That's a very interesting thing, and it's a great thing. I love mobile phone. But any of us who've actually spent any time in front of students realize that what mobile phones have done is they've completely disintegrated a notion of punctuality. It doesn't exist anymore. The whole reason for punctuality was when we lived in a time-driven society without immediate ad hoc communication. So everyone had to agree to arrive on time, otherwise you'd miss your mate. Mobile phones just blew that away. And we're still kind of recovering from that, because we're still saying, oh no, you can't ring your friends in class and so on, and we haven't quite gotten, there isn't really an intelligent discourse about what that means. What does it mean when a society where we used to, punctuality, there are people 10 years older than me, then, you're 5 minutes late for a meeting and they're in a strop. Someone 10 years younger than me, they're 20 minutes late for a meeting, they call, and they don't expect you to be upset. Okay, so we're not giving a lot of thinking about this, are we? We're not doing what academic institutions do, really, which is the meta-criticism. We're not really asking, Google, why? Seriously, come on. It's not because you like people, Why are you offering all of this free stuff? What's it about? What's your economics about? What are your values? What are you trying to do to us? You're a drug dealer, aren't you? You want to get our kids hooked. We're not making those challenges. We're accepting the friending. A friend. That used to be someone, who you were close to and whose relationship with whom you valued. Now it's some random idiot on Facebook. Clue for the 21st century. There are some technology points. They dispense with the VLE. It's gone. History. Over. I think it isn't. And I think the panopticon feature of the VLE, the fact that everybody, you get to see what students are doing. And the point about getting to see what students are doing is you know who's not engaging and who's failing. And things like RSS and OpenID can give you a way of recreating that panopticon. Bounded systems, which is what institutions do. We do bounded systems. A VLE is a bounded system. If you want to access a VLE, you have to log into it. What it is a representation of a classroom in cyberspace. These bounded systems are giving way to more open collaboration, which is why things like Huddle are interesting, generous sponsors of this event, of course. Or something really lightweight. If you don't want to buy Huddle's service, then why not consider some lightweight collaboration using Twitter or some other microblogging service? Hey, I've updated my essay. I mean, people say, far more stupid things on Twitter on a daily basis. Some parting shots, and I'm afraid these are parting shots. This slide was originally titled, As If I Trust the Fuckers. OpenID is far from perfect. Have you tried using OpenID on a smartphone? You know how painful it is typing a URL on a mini keyboard where you have to press function 6 times to get the @ sign. It's better than Shibboleth. Sorry, Janet community. It's better than Shibboleth. Why? Because it's a technology about user's identity, not institutional identity. And if I want my students to be out using, some Web 2 service, I do need the panopticon thing. I do need to see what they're doing. So OpenID would help. If institutions were OpenID providers as well as SHIB providers, then I would have a way of integrating, the commercial stuff from the academic publishers with the ad hoc stuff. I know Google have SAML sign-in, but an awful lot of people are never going to go there. SAML is like nightmare stuff. And I don't trust extra institutional. I really don't trust extra institutional software as a service. Who knows? Microsoft might be taking over Yahoo as we speak. Steve Ballmer's woken up, found a pot of money, and he's moving in. How long is Google going to be able to get away with their advertising revenue gain before somebody rumbles them? Hey, you're just a newspaper publisher whose journalists work for nothing. So they won't survive forever, and we can't, I'm not saying in the College of the Future, in actual fact, we've outsourced everything to Google and Yahoo. But, I would leave you with this. We've managed Patch Tuesdays for years, haven't we? What has Microsoft given us? Lots and lots of wonderful things, but basically computers that never bloody work. And when they do, they become an active danger to the world at large. So IT departments, what we are good at in the end, I think, is making a silk purse out of a pig's ear. Windows has taught us that. So, maybe you don't have to trust them entirely to make use of what they are offering. Anyway, I would like to thank the following people, and that's about it.